It started innocently enough, back when we were both in our mid-20s, fresh out of college and fumbling through entry-level jobs. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue one summer afternoon, the kind where everyone brings cheap beer and overcooks the burgers on a rusty grill. He was there with a group of guys from his office, laughing about some inside joke, and I was nursing a soda, feeling out of place among people I barely knew. We ended up talking because we both reached for the last hot dog at the same time, and from there it was easy conversation about our shared frustration with the job market and how we'd both majored in something practical but ended up in roles that felt like dead ends. He was charming in a quiet way, not the flashy type, but someone who listened more than he spoke, which drew me in. I liked that he didn't try to impress me with stories of adventures or achievements. Instead, he asked about my family, my hobbies, the books I was reading. We exchanged numbers that day, and our first date was at a casual diner, sharing fries and talking until the place closed. Looking back, those early days were filled with the kind of hope that makes everything seem possible. We dated for about a year before he proposed during a weekend hike. We'd packed sandwiches and water, and at the top of the trail, with sweat on our brows and the sun setting, he got down on one knee with a simple ring he'd saved up for. It wasn't extravagant, but it felt real, grounded in who we were. We got married in a small ceremony at a local park, surrounded by family and a few close friends. No big wedding dress drama or destination honeymoon. We opted for a practical approach, saving money for a down payment on a house instead. Our first home was a modest two-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood, with a backyard just big enough for a vegetable garden I dreamed of starting, but never quite got around to. He worked in sales for a mid-sized company, traveling occasionally, and I had a job in administration at a non-profit, handling paperwork and events. Life settled into a rhythm, mornings with coffee at the kitchen table, evenings cooking simple meals like pasta or stir-fry, weekends running errands or binge-watching shows on the couch. At first, the little things were what made it work. He'd leave notes on the fridge reminding me to take my vitamins, or I'd surprise him with his favorite takeout after a long day. We talked about kids someday, maybe two, and how we'd balance careers with family. But as the years ticked by, 5, then 7, I started noticing shifts, subtle at first, like cracks in a foundation you don't see until the rain comes. His work trips became more frequent, and when he returned, he'd be distant, scrolling through his phone during dinner instead of engaging like he used to. I'd ask about his day, and he'd give vague answers. Busy, same old stuff. I chalked it up to stress, sales quotas were tough, and the economy wasn't helping. Then there were the arguments, not explosive ones, but the kind that simmer. Like when I'd suggest a weekend getaway to reconnect, and he'd say we couldn't afford it, even though our savings were steady. Or when I'd mention feeling lonely on those nights he was away, and he'd brush it off with, "It's just work, it'll pass." I tried to communicate, reading articles online about keeping marriages strong, suggesting we try couples activities like a cooking class or walks in the evenings. He humoured me a few times, but it felt forced, like he was going through the motions. One evening, after he'd been gone for a week on a conference, I decided to surprise him by cleaning out the garage, our catch-all for junk. As I sorted through boxes of old paperwork, I found a stack of receipts tucked away in a folder labelled Expenses. Most were mundane: hotel stays, meals, gas. But one caught my eye: a charge for a jewellery store in a city he'd visited months ago. It was for a necklace, something delicate and expensive, not the kind of thing he'd buy for himself. My heart skipped. We'd agreed on no big purchases without discussing, and besides, he hadn't given me any jewellery since our anniversary 2 years back. I sat there on the cold concrete floor staring at it, my mind racing. Was it a gift for someone else? Or maybe for me, forgotten in the rush of life? I shoved it back, telling myself not to jump to conclusions, but the doubt lingered like a shadow. That night when he got home, I didn't mention it. Instead, we had a quiet dinner, grilled chicken and salad, and he seemed more affectionate than usual, pulling me into a hug and saying he'd missed me. We made love for the first time in weeks, and it felt genuine, reconnecting. But as I lay awake afterward, listening to his steady breathing, I couldn't shake the unease. The next morning, over breakfast, I casually asked about his trip, probing for details. He mentioned meeting up with colleagues for drinks, nothing out of the ordinary. I nodded, smiling, but inside, questions brewed. Weeks passed, and I tried to focus on the positives, our shared routines, the way he'd still make me laugh with silly impressions of his boss. But the receipt nagged at me. One afternoon, while he was at work, I went back to the garage and dug it out again, this time noticing the date. It was around Valentine's Day, when he'd claimed to be swamped and we'd just exchanged cards. My stomach twisted. I started paying closer attention to his phone, not snooping outright, but noticing how he'd angle it away when texting. Then, one day, while folding laundry, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message popped up from a number not saved. "Can't wait to see you next week. Miss our talks." My hands shook as I stared at it. Was this it? The proof I dreaded? I confronted him that evening, holding the phone out. He looked surprised, then sighed, rubbing his temples. "It's not what you think," he said. "That's my sister. She got a new number and we've been planning a surprise for Mum's birthday." Relief washed over me, mixed with embarrassment. He showed me the full thread. Innocent chats about family, gifts. I apologized, feeling foolish for doubting. We hugged, and he promised to be more open. For a while, things improved. He cut back on trips. We started date nights again. But deep down, something felt off, like the trust had cracked just a bit. Then came the twist that upended everything. It was a rainy Saturday. I was home alone while he ran errands. The mail arrived, and among the bills was an envelope from a law firm addressed to him. Curious, I opened it. Our mail was communal after all, and inside was a letter about a consultation for divorce proceedings. My world tilted. He'd seen a lawyer without telling me? The date was recent, just 2 weeks ago. I sat at the kitchen table, rain pattering against the window, heart pounding. Why? We were working on things, or so I thought. When he came home, groceries in hand, I held up the letter, tears streaming. He froze, then set the bags down slowly. "I can explain," he said, but his voice wavered, and that's when the real unraveling began. After that letter from the law firm, everything felt like it was happening in slow motion. I remember sitting there at the kitchen table, the groceries he'd just brought in still unpacked, bags of fresh produce wilting slightly in the humid air from the rain outside. He stood in the doorway, water dripping from his jacket, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. "It's not what it looks like," he started, echoing his words from the phone incident, but this time there was no quick explanation to smooth it over. I demanded answers, my voice sharper than intended, laced with the hurt that had been building for months. He sat down across from me, avoiding my eyes at first, fiddling with the edge of the tablecloth. "I've been unhappy," he admitted finally. "Not because of you exactly, but everything. The job, the routine, feeling like we're just going through the motions." It stung, hearing him say it out loud, because I'd felt it too, but I'd been fighting to fix it. We talked for hours that afternoon, the rain turning to a steady drizzle that mirrored the gloom in the room. He confessed to seeing the lawyer on a whim after a particularly bad week at work, when sales were down and he'd been chewed out by his manager. "I wasn't planning to go through with it," he said. "I just wanted to know my options, in case things didn't improve." Options? The word hung between us like an accusation. I cried, then got angry, pacing the kitchen. "Why didn't you talk to me first? We're supposed to be a team." He nodded, apologetic, and by evening we agreed to try counselling. It wasn't an easy decision. I'd always prided myself on handling things privately, but desperation pushed us there. Our first session was the following week, in a nondescript office building with worn carpets and generic artwork on the walls. The therapist was a middle-aged woman with a calm demeanor, asking us to share our perspectives. I went first, pouring out the loneliness, the doubts from the receipts and messages. He listened, then shared his side, feeling trapped in a career he hated, resenting how our life had become predictable, missing the spontaneity of our early days. Counselling became our lifeline for a while. We went weekly, learning tools like active listening and setting aside time for intentional connection. At home, we implemented them: date nights without phones, weekend walks where we'd talk about dreams, not just bills. Slowly, things seemed to mend. He'd surprise me with small gestures, like brewing my favourite tea in the evenings or joining me for yoga videos in the living room. I opened up more about my own frustrations at work, how the non-profit's endless funding issues drained me. We even planned a short trip, driving to a nearby lake for a weekend of fishing and reading by the water. It felt like a reset, like we were rediscovering each other. But beneath the progress, doubts lingered. I'd catch myself wondering if his efforts were genuine or just to avoid the hassle of separation. And then there were the practicalities. We'd built a life together, shared finances, a mortgage. Divorcing would mean untangling all that, and the thought exhausted me. My family had gone through it. My parents split when I was a teen, and I'd seen the bitterness, the custody battles over nothing but pride. I didn't want that for us, so I pushed forward, focusing on the good days. About 3 months into counselling, things took a positive turn. He got a promotion at work, less travel, more stability. We celebrated with a homemade dinner, steak and potatoes, his favourite, and talked about finally starting that family we'd discussed years ago. I was ovulating regularly, and we decided to try naturally, no pressure. It was exciting, a new chapter. Sex became purposeful, but still intimate, and I allowed myself to hope. Then, one morning, I woke up nauseous. A pregnancy test confirmed it, positive. Joy flooded me. This was the sign we needed. I planned to tell him that evening, setting the table with candles and his preferred beer chilled. But when he came home, his face was ashen. "We need to talk," he said before I could share. My stomach dropped. He sat me down, taking my hands. "The promotion, it's not just more money, it requires relocating to another office across the state. Relocating? We'd never discussed that." "I applied for it months ago," he confessed, "before the lawyer thing. I thought it might be a fresh start for me, for us." Anger surged. Without telling me. Again. He explained it was a long shot, but now it was real, and he wanted it. The job meant better hours, higher pay, but uprooting our life. I felt betrayed, like all the counselling was a facade. "What about the baby?" I blurted, tears flowing. His eyes widened. "Baby?" The room spun as I explained the test. He hugged me, whispering apologies, saying we'd figure it out together. But in that moment, doubt crystallized. Was he staying for the child or for us? We debated for days. He argued the move could be good, a bigger house, new opportunities. I resisted, loving our routine, my job, the familiarity. Friends weighed in subtly when we'd meet for coffee, suggesting compromise. But internally, I wrestled with resentment. How many secrets had he kept? The jewellery receipt resurfaced in my mind. He'd never fully explained it, dismissing it as a client gift. I started journaling, pouring out emotions late at night, reflecting on how I'd changed too, becoming more independent, less reliant on him for happiness. The twist came unexpectedly during a routine doctor's appointment for the pregnancy. The OB-GYN reviewed my blood work, then paused. "There's something irregular," she said gently. Further tests revealed I had a condition that made carrying to term risky, possibly requiring bed rest or interventions. Panic set in. This wasn't part of the plan. When I told him, he was supportive, attending appointments, researching options. But one night, as we lay in bed, he whispered, "Maybe this is a sign we should rethink everything." Rethink? The pregnancy, the marriage? My heart shattered. "Are you saying you don't want this?" I asked. He backtracked, but the damage was done. In that vulnerable moment, I realized the relocation wasn't just about the job. It was his escape hatch, a way to start over without fully committing. The promotion letter had come with an acceptance deadline, and he'd been stalling, weighing his options alone again. That night, I couldn't sleep, staring at the ceiling, feeling the tiny life inside me and the vast uncertainty ahead. The man I'd married, the one who'd once made me feel secure, now seemed like a stranger navigating his own path, leaving me to catch up. And as the rain started again outside, tapping insistently on the window, I wondered if we could weather this storm, or if it was time to let go. The weeks following that doctor's appointment blurred into a haze of appointments, decisions, and tense conversations. I was prescribed modified bed rest, nothing extreme, but enough to limit my activities, forcing me to take leave from work earlier than planned. Mornings became a ritual of propping myself up with pillows on the couch, sipping herbal tea, and scrolling through parenting forums for reassurance. He adjusted his schedule, working from home more, bringing me meals on a tray like I was an invalid. It was sweet in a way, but it highlighted our imbalance. Me, vulnerable and dependent. Him, the provider, stepping up. We talked endlessly about the relocation. He painted pictures of a fresh start, a house with a nursery overlooking a yard, better schools if the baby made it. I countered with practicalities. My support network here, the familiarity that grounded me during this uncertainty. Emotions swung wildly. One day, I'd feel grateful for his attentiveness, rubbing my feet after a long day. The next, resentment bubbled when he'd take calls in the other room, his voice low and secretive. Counseling continued virtually now, the therapist urging us to communicate openly. "Trust is rebuilt through actions," she said. He tried, sharing his work emails, discussing the promotion details. It turned out the new office was in a growing area, with opportunities for me too, perhaps freelancing or part-time at a similar non-profit. We even looked at listings online, virtual tours of homes with spacious kitchens and fenced backyards. For a moment, it tempted me, the idea of reinvention. But pregnancy hormones amplified everything. I'd cry over small things like burning toast or a sad commercial, and he'd comfort me, but I sensed his patience wearing thin. One evening, as we ate takeout on the couch, pizza with extra cheese, my craving, he mentioned casually that he'd accepted the promotion. "What?" I set down my slice, stunned. "We were still discussing," he sighed. "The deadline was approaching, and I thought, we could make it work." Fury rose. It was another unilateral decision. We argued late into the night, me accusing him of selfishness, him defending it as for our family's future. By morning, we'd reached a fragile truce. We'd move, but only after the baby's birth, giving me time to adjust. As my belly grew, so did reflections on our marriage. Lying in bed, hand on my bump, I'd think back to our wedding vows, promises of partnership that now felt hollow. I'd always been the planner, the one organising bills and holidays, while he was more go with the flow. But now his independence felt like detachment. I started therapy solo, via video calls, unpacking my fears, losing myself in motherhood, the marriage crumbling under pressure. The therapist helped me see patterns, how I'd avoided conflict early on, enabling his secrets. Family dynamics shifted too. My mum called daily, offering advice from her own experience as a single parent post-divorce. "Don't stay for the child," she'd say softly. "Kids sense unhappiness." His family was excited about the grandbaby, sending care packages with blankets and onesies. We visited them once, a drive to their home where we put on smiles, but tension simmered. His sister pulled me aside, whispering, "He's always been a bit of a lone wolf, but he loves you." It was meant to reassure, but it underscored the isolation I felt. Then, around the 6-month mark, complications arose. Ultrasounds showed the baby was smaller than expected, prompting more tests. Stress, the doctor said, could be a factor. He blamed himself, vowing to do better. We attended birthing classes together, holding hands during breathing exercises, laughing awkwardly at the videos. It bonded us momentarily, reminding me of why I'd fallen for him. His quiet strength, the way he'd squeeze my hand reassuringly, but life threw another curve. One afternoon while he was at the office, a package arrived addressed to me from the jewelry store on that old receipt. Inside was the necklace, a simple pendant with our initials engraved. A note. Found this while packing for the move. Sorry, I forgot. Meant for our anniversary. Love you. Packing. He hadn't mentioned starting that. I called him, voice trembling. You're already preparing to go? He admitted yes, boxing non-essentials. I thought it'd ease the transition. It felt like betrayal, him moving forward without me fully on board. That sparked a deeper conversation when he got home. We sat on the porch, watching neighbours walk their dogs, and I opened up about feeling sidelined. He listened, then shared his own vulnerabilities. Fear of failure as a father, pressure from his job. The promotion is my way of providing, he said. Tears came for both of us, a release. We agreed to delay the move indefinitely, prioritising my health and the baby. As winter approached, routines stabilised. I'd read books on parenting. He'd assemble the crib in the spare room. Intimacy returned, gentle and affirming. But in quiet moments, I'd wonder if this peace was temporary, built on the pregnancy rather than true change. The therapist noted progress, but warned of postpartum challenges. I journaled more, capturing the nuances, the joy of feeling kicks, the fear of what came next. One night, over dinner, homemade soup and bread, he suggested renewing our vows post-baby, a recommitment. It touched me, a gesture of intent. We planned it loosely, focusing on the present. But as I lay awake, hand on my swelling belly, an undercurrent of uncertainty persisted. Life felt precarious, like walking a tightrope, with the baby as both anchor and wildcard. The birth changed everything, as births do, but not in the dramatic ways you read about. It was a Tuesday in early spring, after a false alarm the week before. Labour started subtly, a twinge during breakfast, then contractions building through the morning. He drove me to the hospital in our reliable car, gripping the wheel tightly, his face a mix of excitement and nerves. The delivery room was bright and clinical, with monitors beeping and nurses bustling. After hours of pushing, our daughter arrived, tiny, with a cry that pierced the air, her skin wrinkled and perfect. We named her something simple, a name we'd agreed on months ago, evoking strength and grace. Holding her for the first time, exhaustion mingled with overwhelming love. He teared up, kissing my forehead, whispering, "She's beautiful, like you." Those first days in the hospital were a bubble. Feedings, diaper changes, visitors bringing balloons and stuffed animals. Back home, reality hit. Sleepless nights, the constant cycle of nursing and soothing. He took paternity leave, helping with everything, from burping her to laundry. We'd take turns rocking her in the glider, sharing bleary-eyed smiles over her coos. But postpartum brought its shadows. Hormones crashed, leaving me weepy and anxious. The condition from pregnancy lingered, requiring follow-ups, and I struggled with body image, staring at stretch marks in the mirror. He was patient, but I sensed his restlessness. The promotion loomed, delayed but not forgotten. We'd discuss it in whispers during nap times. Maybe in a few months, he'd say. I nodded but inwardly resisted. Our home felt like a sanctuary now, with her nursery painted soft blue, toys scattered. Parenting revealed new facets of us. I discovered a fierce protectiveness, advocating at paediatrician visits, researching every milestone. He was playful, making silly faces to elicit giggles, but practical too, budgeting for diapers and formula supplements when nursing faltered. Yet, cracks reappeared. He'd check work emails during family time or sigh when she cried at night. "I need to get back," he'd mutter. I felt it as rejection, like our little unit wasn't enough. Counselling resumed, now with baby in tow sometimes. We explored roles, me as primary caregiver, him as breadwinner. It worked functionally, but emotionally, I yearned for more partnership. Friends with kids shared stories over playdates, coffee in backyards, babies on blankets, reminding me marriages evolve. One confided her own near divorce, saved by honest talks. Inspired, I initiated more. "What do you need from me?" I'd ask. He'd say, "Space, understanding his career drive." I shared my need for emotional presence. Summer brought routines, park walks with the stroller, her first smiles lighting up days. We hosted barbecues, mimicking where we'd met, friends cooing over her. But one evening, after guests left, he dropped a bomb. "The company wants me to start the new role soon, or they'll retract the offer." Pressure mounted. We argued, me fearing isolation in a new place, him insisting on financial security. "For her future," he said, gesturing to her sleeping form. Compromise emerged, a trial period. He'd commute long distance at first, us staying put. It strained us, him gone more, me solo parenting. Exhaustion bred resentment. I'd snap over unwashed dishes, he'd retreat. Then a health scare. She developed a fever. Rushing to the ER test showed a minor infection, but the fear bonded us. In the waiting room, holding hands, we vowed to prioritize family. As fall set in, leaves crunching underfoot during walks, things stabilized. He negotiated remote work, reducing travel. We celebrated her first Halloween, dressing her as a pumpkin, taking photos. Intimacy returned sporadically, stolen moments when she napped, but reflection deepened. Was this enough? In therapy, I admitted lingering trust issues from the secrets. He owned them, promising transparency. A small twist came via a work event he attended, a conference where old colleagues gathered. He returned energized, sharing stories, but mentioned running into a former co-worker, a woman he'd mentioned casually before. Jealousy flickered, recalling the receipt. "Just friends," he assured. I believed him, but it stirred old doubts. By winter, with her first birthday approaching, we planned a quiet party, cake and family. Life felt fuller, yet I sensed his unfulfilled ambition. One night, as snow fell outside, he confessed. I turned down the promotion for us. Shock hit. He'd chosen stability over advancement. Gratitude washed over me, but also guilt. Had I held him back? We hugged, tears mixing, a turning point. From there, growth accelerated. We explored hobbies together, gardening in the yard, her tiny hands in soil, cooking new recipes on weekends. Communication deepened, sharing fears and dreams. I returned to work part-time, balancing with daycare. He mentored juniors remotely, finding fulfillment locally. Yet, realism tempered joy. Marriage wasn't perfect. Arguments arose over finances or chores, but we resolved them quicker. The baby, toddling now, brought laughter and chaos, grounding us. In quiet moments, I'd reflect. Divorce had loomed, but we'd navigated through nuance, not drama. It felt authentic, like real life. As our daughter turned 2, life had settled into a rhythm that felt sustainable, if not always thrilling. Mornings were chaotic, her demanding breakfast, oatmeal with fruit, while he brewed coffee and I packed lunches. Workdays blurred. I was back full-time at the non-profit, advocating for grants, while he stuck with his role, content after declining the promotion. Evenings involved baths, stories, and collapsing on the couch, sometimes watching a show, other times just talking. But contentment bred complacency. Small irritations built, his habit of leaving socks everywhere, my tendency to overplan weekends. We'd bicker, then make up. But the underlying question lingered. Were we thriving or just surviving? Therapy had tapered off, but I suggested restarting. He agreed reluctantly. Sessions revealed evolving needs. Me craving adventure, him seeking stability. We compromised with family outings, hikes, picnics, rekindling sparks. Then an opportunity arose for me, a leadership role at work involving travel. Excitement surged. It'd mean growth, more income. He supported it, but I saw hesitation, roles reversing. As I prepared, attending conferences, he handled home more. It empowered me, but guilt nagged when she'd cry for mommy on calls. A plot turn came during one trip. I met colleagues sharing marriage stories, one confiding an affair that ended her union. It mirrored my fears from years back, prompting reflection. Had I forgiven fully? Returning home, I initiated a deep talk. "Do you regret staying?" I asked. He paused, then, "No, but sometimes I wonder what if." Honesty stung, but opened doors. We explored resentments, his sacrificed ambitions, my eroded trust. From there, we rebuilt intentionally. Date nights became priority, dinners out, walks hand in hand. We joined a parents group, connecting with couples navigating similar phases. Sex improved, more connected. Our daughter flourished, her chatter filling the house, drawing us closer. But life remained unpredictable. His company downsized, stressing finances. We tightened budgets, cutting extras, but it strained us. Arguments escalated. One night, over bills, he snapped, "Maybe I should have taken that job." Hurt, I retreated. The next day, apologies flowed, but seeds of doubt replanted. Counselling helped unpack, economic pressures amplifying issues. We created a plan, side gigs, savings goals. I took on freelance, he tutored online. Teamwork strengthened us. As she started preschool, free time emerged. We used it wisely, volunteering together, fostering purpose. Years passed subtly. By her 5th birthday, we'd weathered storms. A minor car accident, my health flare-up. Each tested resilience, but we emerged closer. Reflections in my journal evolved, from pain to gratitude. Marriage, I realized, was a choice daily, nuanced by life's ebbs. One evening, over wine on the porch, watching her play, he said, "I'm glad we fought for this." I agreed, leaning into him. No grand gestures, just quiet affirmation. Divorce had been a shadow, but we'd chosen light, imperfect, real, ours. The end wasn't tidy. Challenges persisted, her school issues, our aging parents. But emotional depth grew, characters developed through trials. Twists had come, secrets, health scares, opportunities. But we'd navigated with psychological nuance, emerging not transformed, but authentically evolved.